Jared, what's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You ready to go down the Reddit rabbit hole today?
Yeah, I guess so. These things are great. People just pour their heart out on Reddit, and it gives us lots of good material. So
Yeah, there's some good stuff on here. All right, let's dive into this first one on debt. This is from user Fella Need a Hand Please. These usernames should be fun. So this is, I've gotten myself into a bad situation with those payday advance apps. So he writes, there are several applications out there that will advance you X amount of dollars, and then you pay it back once you get your next paycheck. A while back, I ended up needing more money than I had. I do not have a credit card, and I ended up using several of those apps. I make about $1,000 bi-weekly, and I'm at the point where pretty much my entire paycheck gets drained by these apps on my payday. They take a fee, and then once the payment is done processing, I can take another advance. He goes on to say that his rent alone is more than one of his paychecks. He needs to get out of this situation, but has no idea how. What can he do? And to clarify, these are, we advance you $100, you pay us $110 on your payday type of loans. So apps like EarnIn and MoneyLion.
I didn't know there were payday loan apps. You sent me this ahead of time, and I'd never heard of this before. Like, this is totally new to me. There's payday lenders in Myrtle Beach, and they're in a building. That's actually, to have them on an app makes a lot of sense, and you don't have all that overhead. It's actually kind of an evil genius business, In terms of how to get out of it, this is the problem, because payday loans are basically the end of the line. People use payday loans because they can't get a loan from the bank, they can't get a credit card, they can't get any other kind of financing, and they're stuck with the payday loans. And ultimately, the only way people get out of payday loans is if they come across a big slug of cash, whether a scratch-off lottery ticket or a family member lends them money or something like that, and then they can pay everything off and start from scratch. But one of the things I talk about in No Worries is the idea that, when people are in debt and they cut their expenses to, pay the interest on this debt, eventually you can't do that anymore, and you're just going to have to make more money. So I don't know. I have no idea what this person's employment situation is. I don't know how many jobs they're working. If they don't have sort of an angel investor in their family that's going to help out and give them $1,000 to get them out of this debt, then they're just literally just going to have to get another job or do something to pay it off. So
Right. Yep. That makes sense to me. Let's get into some car stuff here. The age-old repair vehicle versus buy a new vehicle debate. This is from user Vineyard Labs. I have a 2004 Ford F-150 with 140,000 miles that has recently developed some severe misfiring and bad engine noises at idle. I'm also fighting with the clogged cat. Hopefully he's talking catalytic converter, otherwise he needs to get to the vet. I'm still waiting on final quotes, but I expect to need about $5,000 in repairs. My truck is kind of a beater, and I assume it's worth on the low end on the KBB private party range. To my knowledge, it doesn't have any other lurking mechanical issues, but it is up there in mileage and in age. So he is struggling with whether he should fix it, and he hopes he can get another several years without blowing a trans or something, but I'm also considering purchasing a used vehicle in the neighborhood of $35,000. I have a kid and another on the way, and both my wife and I work outside of the home, so having car issues for either of us is a major inconvenience. I have plenty of cash in the bank and save about $1,600 a month, so I think I can afford a $400 to $500 car payment, or even just buy it in cash, but my wife and I are trying to purchase a new home in the next couple of years, so I don't really want to part with large sums of cash or take on large new payments.
I think the takeaway here is, he said that he can't really deal with the inconvenience of a car breaking down. I'm not an expert on cars, but I can tell you that a 20-year-old truck with 140,000 miles, if it's got one mechanical problem, there's a good chance it's going to have another. And I would go down the road of getting a new car. $35,000 sounds like a lot for a used car. but okay, I'll just take him at his word. In terms of his ability to save for a house, might have to postpone that a little bit longer. And also, one thing I thought interesting about this piece was that he's thinking in terms of what kind of payment he can afford, right? $400 to $500 a month payment, and people really get trapped by this. They think in terms of what payment they can afford rather than what interest rate they can afford. I don't know. I don't know what kind of financing terms he would get on buying this $35,000 used car. Hopefully, it's a 5-year loan. My guess is it's not. My guess is it's probably something more. Look, out of all the financial problems I've heard on Reddit, this is not the most intractable. You know, the guy has some cash. He has enough cash to buy a new car, so these are good problems to have. I would go for getting the new used car, but I'm sure he can get a better deal than 35,000. So,
That was my thoughts too. 35 seems kind of steep for a used car.
by the way, I have had a clogged cat. I've had a clogged cat.
What did the vet say?
It was my cat Wendy. She was constipated, and you don't want to be around a constipated cat. It was multiple enemas and trips to the vet, and it was a disaster.
Well, he
But
writes that he's fighting with a clogged cat, so that sounds that sounds terrible. I hope it's the catalytic converter. Let's get into mortgage versus retirement. Where to put extra each month. This is from user Leroy J. He's late 20s, has a $270,000 mortgage at 6.5%. Current principal is $258,000. No other debt whatsoever. Wife and I are finally in a place, 6+ month emergency fund and no other debt to start allocating more money to the mortgage and or retirement. We are expecting about $25,000 surplus each year after everything else is accounted for. He wants to know, am I wrong in thinking there is some inflection point in which we should be prioritizing paying off the house until a certain principal amount is reached before contributing more to our 401k, currently contributing 6% each, which works out to about $9,000 a year? I ask since we just wrapped up our first year living in the house and paid almost $20,000 in interest alone. Our current retirement balance is $40,000 each. Obviously doesn't have these kinds of returns. My thinking is if we were to pay more towards the house, we can have it paid to a point where the interest accruing is less than retirement account gains. What are your thoughts on that?
well, you know, I'm a big fan of paying off mortgages, right? But you have to look at it from a different perspective. So, sounds like he hasn't been in the house very long. Sounds like he's, you know, the fact that he's paying all this interest means he's in the first or second year of his mortgage, which means he probably has about 20% equity, which probably means he has like $60,000 in equity. Okay. He has $40,000 in retirement savings. Okay. So the way I look at this is that he is over allocated to real estate relative to financial assets, right? He has a little bit too much real estate and he does not have enough financial assets. So as much as I would say paying down the mortgage is a good thing, especially at a 6.5% mortgage rate, which is pretty high, I would actually say I would lean towards putting more money in the retirement funds, at least for the next couple years, in order to build those up. You know, you can't go wrong paying down your mortgage, but at the same time, he has no other debt, right? So there's no credit cards, no car loans, no anything, which is good. So yeah, I would take a couple of years and build up those retirement funds a little bit.
Moving on to salary, a couple thoughts on strategy here. This one's from LLTRS186. Going into an interview, I was hoping/expecting that the range for the salary would be similar to where I am now. When the company recruiter asked me what my target salary was, I responded by asking what is the range for the position, to which they responded with their target, which was $30K more than I was expecting and am making now. Essentially, if I would have given the range I was hoping for, even if it was $10K more than what I'm making now, I still would have sold myself short. Granted, this is just an interview and not an offer, but I'm happy knowing that I didn't lowball myself from the get-go. So what are your thoughts on that if an interviewer asks you what your salary range is?
Well, I'm a little surprised he didn't know what the salary ranges was for the job. You kind of have to do your homework on that. It's good that he gave the volleyball to them and said, "Tell me what the range is for the position." I'm not the best negotiator in the world. It's easy for me to negotiate on behalf of other people, but in general, it's a good idea to ask for more, right? So let's say you have a job where you know the range is 125 to 150,000. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask for 175,000, right? And if they meet you at 150, then great, then you're happy. You never want to lowball yourself.
So staying on the same topic as salary, another person wrote in, the cost of recruiting, onboarding, training, etc. often exceeds the cost of paying an already established employee more. Just remember that the next time you talk yourself out of asking for a raise. So you've written about this a little bit, and you wrote about it in No Worries, approaching bosses for a raise.
Yeah, I mean, not just a raise. Like, a lot of companies are dumb. Like, they get stingy about raises to good employees. Then the good employee leaves, and then they have to hire somebody new and pay all these onboarding costs. Like, and they end up paying like $50,000 more. Like, it's always good to ask for a raise. And like I say in the book, you got to be friends with your boss. If you're not friends with your boss, then they're not going to give you a raise. Bosses don't give raises to people they don't like. So
Right. All right, let's wrap it up with one more kind of broad advice post here. I found this online Reddit advice from 12 years ago. Does this financial advice still hold up in 2024? So this bullet list is 1, make a will, pay off your credit cards, get term life insurance if you have a family to support, fund your 401k to the max, fund your IRA to the max, buy a house if you want to live in a house and you can afford it, put 6 months expenses in a money market fund, and then lastly, take whatever money is left over and invest 70% in a stock index fund and 30% in a bond fund through any discount broker and never touch it until retirement.
yeah, those are all great bullet points. I mean, I disagree a little bit on the investment side. I think you should do the awesome portfolio, but for somebody who's just starting out and they don't know any better, 70-30 stocks bonds is totally fine. The most important thing is that you're saving and investing. The one bullet that they left out of this list was having no non-mortgage debt, right? Like, that is key. No non-mortgage debt, no car loans, no credit cards, no student loans. It's okay to have a mortgage, though you want to pay that off too. But that would be the one thing I would add to that list.
Well, this was fun. We should do another Reddit deep dive here soon. I'm sure we can find some even funnier posts and juicier posts, and we'll get to them again in the future. So thank you, Jared. Anything else on your mind?
It's funny. When I teach personal finance in college, I actually have them do Reddit posts. I have the students do Reddit posts. I have them basically pick a Reddit post and discuss it in class, and it's a great thing to do. So,
do they dive into the comments and stuff?
Yeah, they do. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, all that good stuff, and we'll be back again next week. Later, Jared.
See ya.